Hello, this is Gloomy Sunday, and once again, I will be sharing spooky stories that will send shivers down your thorny spine. Without further ado, let's begin tonight's creepy, spooky, and sometimes outlandish array of tales. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. It was a summer evening, the sun was setting, and mosquitoes were starting to come out. The backyard was filled with laughter as my siblings and cousins chased each other, while the uncles got drunk on the back deck. I was 12 at the time, right in the middle of my cousins' age range. A game of hide-and-seek was initiated, and we went over the boundaries. The rules were set to the confines of our neighborhood block, with one strict rule: do not go into the cemetery. Behind my house was a decently dense forest, and beyond that was the cemetery. We had already had some issues with the cemetery before, so my parents hung up corn and put up a scarecrow-like figure. My grandpa, a shaman, had us lay broomsticks near the edge of our property, saying they would sweep away bad luck and negative energy. Other Hong trinkets, similar to dream catchers, were also hung up, crafted by my grandparents to ward off spirits. The game of hide-and-seek went on for the rest of the night. When the final round was announced, I wanted to win, so I decided to push the boundaries and prank my cousins. I ventured beyond the forest and into the cemetery to hide. Weaving through the tombstones, I found a perfect spot. Time passed, and I could hear my cousins shouting for me and my older brother. We were the last two and found. Then, I heard laughter behind a tombstone. It was my brother. The two of us were the most mischievous in the group, and we hatched a plan to lure the others into the cemetery. Counting down from 3, we yelled, "We're over here," before scurrying deeper into the graveyard. Our older cousins yelled that they'd tell our parents if we didn't come back, but we dragged the prank out as long as we could until our mom's voice rang out, demanding we return immediately. We had never gone this far into the cemetery before. The eerie thrill of it was intoxicating. That's when we noticed a tombstone with a pair of shoes on it. My brother picked one up, inspecting it. "Hey, watch this," he said, launching the shoe as far as he could into the pond. "What the hell? Why did you do that?" I asked. "What, are you scared? Throw the other one," he grinned, egging me on. I set it back on the tombstone. "You're crazy," I muttered. But he just laughed, snatched the remaining shoe, and chucked it into the water. Then, still cackling, he shoved me into the mud before bolting toward the forest. Annoyed and covered in dirt, I scrambled to my feet. But as I turned to chase after him, my breath hitched. We weren't alone. My brother tripped and fell, and as I ran past him, he called out, "Help me." "Help yourself," I shot back, but guilt made me stop. I turned to help him up, both of us panting. That's when he nudged me and pressed a finger to his lips, signaling for silence. I thought he was messing with me again until I saw the sheer terror in his eyes. He pointed toward the pond. A man stood at the water's edge. Or at least, what looked like a man. He was tall, old, and Mika, a foreigner. But something was off. He wasn't standing. He was floating. My brother and I locked eyes, silently confirming that we both saw it. Then, without a word, we bolted. Adrenaline fueled our run, making it feel like we were flying. When we reached home, the adults were frantic. My mom stormed out of the forest with some uncles, grabbed both of us, and beat our stick in front of everyone. The gathering ended as our relatives filed out through the side gate. That night, as we lay in bed, I whispered, "What the hell did we see?" "We're not talking about it," my brother muttered. I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. At some point, I glanced at the digital alarm clock. 3:33 a.m. Our queen-sized bed was pushed into the corner, right next to a window facing the road. When cars passed by, their headlights would sweep across our room in a slow, eerie motion. I shut my eyes tight, trying to force myself to sleep. That's when I smelled it. Rotting flesh. The fear that gripped me was unlike anything I had ever felt. Another car drove by, and in that brief flicker of light, I saw him. The man from the cemetery, standing in the corner of our room. Panicked, I nudged my brother. He shushed me without looking. We stayed frozen like that until the figure slowly disappeared with the rising sun. The next 2 nights were the same. The smell, the shadowy figure, the unbearable dread. By the 3rd night, my brother fell ill. My grandpa called a shaman friend to perform a jingle bell ritual for him. When it was done, the shaman pulled my parents aside. I eavesdropped from around the corner. "There's a spirit from the cemetery," the shaman said. "He's extremely angry. Your son did something that greatly offended him." My stomach dropped. The adults went outside. The scarecrow had been knocked over. The corn was scattered. The broomsticks were gone. The shaman donned his veil again and went into another trance. I barely understood Hong, but I caught enough to realize he was pleading with the spirit to let my brother go. When the ritual was over, he turned to my parents. "This spirit won't stop until your son is dead unless he rights his wrong." My brother stood up like a zombie. I rushed to support him. Through shaky breaths, I confessed. "We were in the cemetery that night. He threw some shoes into the pond." Silence. "I didn't do it. I was too scared," I added. "But I'll go with him. We'll fix it." The adults hesitated, but in the end, they let us go. We trudged through the forest, retracing our steps back to the cemetery. The pond was crystal clear until we waded in. Then, out of nowhere, long strands of hair wrapped around our legs. We fought through it, pushing forward despite the sickening sensation. Eventually, our hands brushed against something solid. The shoes. We pulled them from the water and hurried back to the tombstone. My brother placed them down, but in his weakened state, he stumbled, knocking them over again. I bent to pick them up, then froze. Something had fallen out of one of the shoes. A long, soggy, human finger. Swallowing back bile, I shoved the finger back inside and carefully set the shoes back in their place. A presence loomed behind us. The rotting flesh Mika ghost. But this time, he didn't move toward us. He simply stood there, as if acknowledging what had been done. And then, he was gone. Oh wow. That is why you should always be careful when you are in an unfamiliar place. Be mindful of your manners and observe right conduct. I hope you enjoyed our spooky and strange stories. Join us next time for more. Take care and boo-bye.